top story for you right now. A top Republican demanding answers by 5 p.m. today on the use of alleged FBI informants inside the Trump campaign. House Intelligence Chairman Nunes saying that his party isn't satisfied with the information sent by the Bureau in a classified letter. Todd Pyro here with the latest demands. Good morning, Todd.
Heather, good morning to you. You're right, 5 p.m. this afternoon. That's when Nunes is demanding that the Justice Department and FBI confirm that informants were used to gather information on the Trump campaign, how many informants were used, and how much money was spent on the operations. All this after the FBI sent a classified letter to House GOP officials disclosing whether the agency used top-secret confidential informants in the Trump campaign prior to opening an investigation into Russian election meddling. The agency added that it had forwarded House Republicans' request for summaries and transcripts of any conversations between Trump officials and informants to the Director of National Intelligence. But that was not enough for Nunes, who blasted the DOJ and the FBI in a letter to Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein yesterday for, quote, unilaterally restricting access to some subpoenaed documents. Meantime, expect fireworks the Wednesday before the 4th of July. That's this upcoming Wednesday, after FBI agent Peter Strzok is subpoenaed to testify before the House Judiciary Committee.
We'll want to know, who were you talking to at the time? How many times did you travel overseas? Did he talk to key people? For example, do you think Peter Strzok may have talked to Glenn Simpson or Christopher Steele? Those are the kind of questions that I think need to be asked.
I'm looking forward to hearing from him, but the Republicans have not told us anything. We don't even know whether we'll be invited, Democrats, to the deposition.
Yeah, this all comes after reports that Strzok was willing to testify before Congress without immunity in an effort to clear his name, but they wanted to get the subpoena in there just in case, just to make sure he shows up. Heather?
All right. Todd Pyro live for us this morning. Thank you, Todd. Well, some cooperation at last, some being the key word. The DOJ turning over additional FISA court records to Congress, and some lawmakers, say, though, still not enough. And it's all leading up to a showdown with disgraced FBI agent Peter Strzok. So what happens next? Joining me now is former prosecutor and criminal defense attorney Jonas Bilbor. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Good morning.
So what happens next? Let's just start there.
All right. So we know that House Republicans have asked for over 1 million documents from the DOJ. Right. And the DOJ has been letting this line out very slowly, which has raised the ire of House Republicans. Yeah. There's another deadline today to turn over more documents. I expect that not all of them will be turned over. So House Republicans have said, look, we are going to come after you with the full force of the law. Here is the problem. The full force of the law in a case like this is really more bark than it is bite. Yeah. It's like having a beware of dog sign and your dog is a Chihuahua. Right. Because the worst that can happen is the House Republicans can request a contempt citation, which would then lead the DOJ to essentially prosecute itself. First of all, it probably won't happen. Second of all, even if it did, contempt of Congress is a misdemeanor. It's a slap on the wrist. Not a whole lot's going to happen.
But Rod Rosenstein, in effect, would be responsible for investigating himself or holding himself accountable.
Right.
Okay.
And it just logistically, how does that work? And historically, it hasn't worked. So there really is. We need a way to hold the DOJ accountable that really has some bite to it. And we simply don't have that.
Yeah, it's interesting that hasn't come up until this point in time. Right. Let's take a look at what Mark Meadows had to say in terms of the amount of information that they've been receiving. He said in this tweet, new reports of DOJ FBI compliance with document requests are not accurate. While they have turned over additional documents, the new documents represent a small percentage of what they owe. The notion that the FBI or the DOJ FBI have been forthcoming with Congress is false. He actually went a little further to saying that the additional 1,400 documents produced this week's related to just one section of the subpoena that the FBI and DOJ officials request to review surveillance records, etc. And he said at this rate, at this current rate, it would take 1.5 years for them to comply.
And it's already been, I think, 10 months. See, there's a reason. That's the other thing. I think the American people want to know why. Why are you dragging your feet on this? Right. What are you covering up? What do you have to hide? And that's what the House Republicans want, too. I mean, this is the Oversight Committee is created for this purpose. Has there been some wrongdoing? I mean, look, the ankle bone's connected to the shin bone. We've got a Russian collusion investigation that has gone absolutely nowhere. We have suspicions that the entire Russia investigation was based on a completely false dossier paid by the Hillary Clinton campaign. I mean, we're finding evidence of wrongdoing. The IG report, which said, well, there's no bias, but there was bias. So everything is connected, and it doesn't show wrongdoing on Trump's part. It shows that there was some serious misdeeds by the Democrats way back in 2016.
Does it matter that it's just the Republicans on the Oversight Committee who are seeking this additional information?
So, of course, people will say, well, that's biased in and of themselves because we don't have both parties coming together to request this. But you know what? When you're accusing one party of doing something wrong, of course they're not going to tell on themselves. So I don't see it as a huge problem. If we get the documents that House Republicans have requested, that'll solve everything, if we get them.
Yeah. So do you think that we'll eventually get them, or do you think that there'll just be this long, drawn-out process that will take what we just said 1.5 years to comply? Because then it's useless.
Right, and we don't want it to be useless. Right. So I think eventually we will get them, because even if they slap them with a contempt of Congress, they could also, House Republicans could go to a judge and say, you need to order the DOJ to comply with us. So that would be a civil remedy. So we've got a 1-2 punch.
Who would that judge be?
Whoever the House Republicans, a D.C. judge to do that. And so we have a 1-2 punch. It's just that even together, it's not a very forceful. But if a judge orders you to turn over documents and you don't, now you have a second bite at the apple to force compliance here. So they may end up doing
this whole system of checks and balances, it really, that's the bigger story here that is coming to light in terms of what Americans are seeing happen.
Oh, my goodness.
That it's not working.
Weren't we all shocked? I mean, when we saw that latest Peter Strzok text or tweet that they were
that was held back.
That was held back. I mean, it obviously held back. That they were going to stop Trump from becoming president. I can't wait for his testimony. What exactly did that mean? I mean, that in and of itself, the fact that it was held back and the fact that that tweet was created or text was created.
That's the final question I did want to ask you, because I wanted to get into that. I'm glad you mentioned it. Do you think that he will actually appear on, what is it, Wednesday?
So, yeah. So he's claiming he's looking forward to it. He claimed, don't bother subpoenaing me. I'm just going to show up and voluntarily testify. But depending on the questions, too, Heather, you could show up and start testifying. And if it gets into dangerous territory, he could claim the fifth.
Which we have seen people do.
I know.
Plenty of times. All right. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Lots happening. Well, the time now is about 18 minutes.